one step of strategic planning for our lives and for our goals is to can you visualize yourself in the life that you want, in the life that you're trying to exit this one from and move to? And it's okay if you're like, man, I'm getting a little, it's a little janky trying to visualize it, but work on it. Really try to see yourself in this space of
Mhm.
whatever is the beauty, the color, the success, the outcomes of it.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Beauty in You podcast. I'm very excited for this episode, you guys. I can't wait for you all to be just as inspired as I was when I met this amazing woman. She is a feminist change maker. She is a Fulbright scholar. She is an expert on inclusion and equity focused practice in health and wellness. And she adopted me, y'all. So she's kind of my new mom. So welcome to the Beauty in You podcast, Dr. Carter. How are you?
What's up? What's up? What's up? I'm happy to be here, and just honored that you have me on the podcast tonight.
Nah, I'm honored that you are here. Your story is so cool. It's like inspires me and it scares me at the same time. Because I one day want to be able to do what you do, and I one day want to be able to make such a huge impact on so many people just like you do. So, can you start us on? Let me see. You pick a part of your journey, but start me on your rediscovery journey. If you want me to pick, I could pick too. But
You pick.
okay,
You
let's talk
pick.
about
Yeah.
the moment where you walked. It's 15 years, and you made a huge
15 years.
decision. And that's the part, y'all, that scares me and inspires me all at the same time. So, can you start us on your journey from when you decided to make a huge decision in your life after 15 years?
Yeah, so, I was a professor for 15 years. And what's so interesting is that when people see me now walking in uh, what God chose for, I mean, the whole journey is what God chose for me. But I feel like where I am now was the buildup, right? Was the harvest of what truly was the seeds that were planted when I was a professor. And when people see me now, they would never think that I was a professor before for 15 years, teaching classes, creating syllabi, and it's so interesting. It's so fascinating that we as human beings, and I'm going to say particularly as women, um, there are there's moments that we are we are spoken to. And God, I'm a very religious person, I'm going to say a spiritual person, very spiritual person. And God will speak to you and say and put messages in, and we'll be like, nah, homie, like not right now. This
Hmm.
not the time. And that had happened, I think across many different times in my academic journey as a professor. There were moments that I look back where I think I was being directed to not even be a professor, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I was so focused on an idea of myself as a professor in a large auditorium, educating, uh, educating the next generation, educating students. And I was like, no, this is what I'm going to do. So I kept doing it. Um, and the realization of who I thought I was going to be never came to be.
Hmm.
And even saying that, I'm sure many people are going to listen to this podcast and be like, what is Dr. Leeja talking about? She got a Fulbright. She has a published book on feminist applied sports psychology. She's published articles. What is she talking about? She's never realized an idea of an academic scholar. Um, but what it felt like to be a Black woman in the academy, it didn't feel good. It didn't feel like I was welcomed. It didn't feel comforting. It didn't feel like ease. It didn't feel
Hmm.
peaceful. It didn't feel joyful. It felt like I was fighting every day. to be heard and seen, and to feel like the work that I was doing was appreciated and valued.
Mm.
And I would say the story that I tell everyone is that in 2018, when it became official that I was going to get my Fulbright to London, and then I ended up going to London in 2019, and I'm walking down the streets of London, and it was just a walk. And it's so interesting that at least I thought that um, a peak experience will be an experience that looks a certain way. Like, hey, I'm jumping off a cliff, and like it just, the parachute flies, and I'm like, man, this is a peak experience. Man, I'm just walking down the street in London. I think I was in Earl's Court, and it's a cloudy day.
Mhm.
Um, I had on this coat that I purchased from the H&M in London. I just it just felt good. It felt free. It felt different. Um, it felt free. And I remember just thinking to myself, I felt like my ideas were a lot more welcomed at the university that I was at in London.
Mhm.
Um, I felt creative. I had gotten sleep for a very long time. I hadn't gotten sleep in a very long time. And when I say sleep, I mean like consecutive nights of sleep. And so to the point that like I had got sleep, I had gotten good food. Sidebar, I was so broke living in New York City, living in Brooklyn as a professor. I had like a salary of like 70,000. I
Mhm.
could barely pay my rent. I could barely eat. It's a whole story for another day. And so being food insecure, being a professor, yet a Fulbright, I'm like, it's such a dual consciousness that I was experiencing being living in the US. And then I have a Fulbright, I'm in London. I could have meals, um, walking down a London street, people are appreciating the way that I view um, health, women's health, Black women's health.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, man, I just feel like this caged bird, the door of the cage has now just been open. And
Wow.
I feel different. And I'm just like, you know what? The denominator here, the variable is academia.
Mhm.
And every institution I had been at had been presenting the same challenges for me. So I'm like, this isn't me.
Right.
This is the structure, the system of academia that is making it hard for me. It's making it hard for my colleagues. And so I remember talking to a colleague once I got back, and I was just like, yeah, like it's time for me to bounce, Like it's time for me to get out. This was 2019. She gave me the best piece of advice. She said, I hear you. I hear you. And have a plan. Don't just leave, have a plan. So I started planning my exit strategy
Mhm.
in 2019 after I completed my Fulbright, and just thinking about strategically what that would look like. When COVID hit and I ended up creating my nonprofit, I think that multiple worlds started colliding.
Mhm.
By that time, now we're a year and a half past me already knowing that my heart is no longer in academia. It's time for me to leave. I found, I really started to see even more deeply how the work that I had been working on, the passions that I had for impacting the community were immediately translated to the community, and that change making was happening right there in the community. Um, and so it really and I had already been planning. So it was like, I think it was then that God was like, look, you don't got to plan no more. You already got the plan in place. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't get too stuck in the plan, Um, so it's really time to pull the trigger on it. I had a conversations with a few mentors that were like, hey, if you're gonna jump, we got your back. And I remember one night having a dream, and the dream was like, you have everything that you need. And that was a mantra that kept being repeated to me. And it was just like, look, you got everything you need. And I needed to know in my heart that regardless of the decisions that I make, you have everything that you need. Even if you don't see it right in front of you,
Mhm.
you have everything that you need. And so uh, I resigned from being a professor, from being at the university that I was at. But then also, part of academia means that, for me, meant that I was also going to remove myself from being in the academy in general and was going
Mhm.
to fully jump into being in the world of nonprofit management and social cause in this way. Um, and so I jumped, I leaped. And I'll tell you what, I was scared as hell.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna ask you is like that fear. Let's talk about that fear because you've already did this, okay? And I'm scared. My heart is like, oh my gosh, because I think about myself in your story
Hmm.
because I'm stuck. I'll be honest, I'm stuck right now where I am. I love what I do with the Chiquita Mack and the impact I make on women and going out to speak and doing the podcast and it's nice. And then I struggle with being in the military. I struggle with it because when I first got in, I said, I'm going to be a general. I'm going to be the African American one-star general. And boy, I'm moving. I am grooving. And actually, I go to the board for lieutenant colonel in a month. And my goal
Mm,
was to make it before I'm 40 and we moving right along. And I'm like, but my heart is not as the same as it was when I first joined. And that's where I get stuck. But then I have my sisters that look like me and they're like, ma'am, you doing it, ma'am? Or they come for advice and they're like, have you ever gone through this? Because it's hard for us. It's hard for us. I'm the only one when I walk into that meeting, I am the only one
hmm
female
hmm
in African American. And I'm like, you're going to hear my voice. No, we not doing that. And I walk out, I'm like, okay. But then it's so so it's like I feel stuck. I feel stuck. I'm like, do I stay for my people? Yes, because I love my ladies and I want to help them. And I don't know. I don't know, Dr. Carter. It's the scary part. So I'm feeling even though you made your decision, I feel the fear and I don't know.
You know, it's very similar experiences because, one of the things that kept me in academia was the students. Because I'm like, look, like the students, look, at the end of the day, I was a great professor,
I
right?
believe it.
Like,
Yes.
I was a great professor. If I jump back into the classroom right now, me and the students are gonna have a great time. I had a great way of taking very layered, complex information. And sidebar, the course that pretty much I was hired to teach was research methods. One of the hardest courses, that students have to take. And so taking this layered information and finding. Sidebar, I was a comedian in another time. I'm a goofball, I'm a knucklehead. It is my motivation to get people to laugh at least like 3 to 5 times in a
I love
conversation. Like
it.
I'm like that's just me. And so taking research methods, injecting humor in it, injecting all these things in it, and also in a way that you're going to remember it, it's going to connect to you, and then you're going to be able to translate it into your everyday experience where you're like, oh my God, that's research, that's methodology, that's this, that's that, right?
Mhm.
I have students that would come in the first day of class and being like, I can't, I can't, I can't. And then end the semester being like, not only can I, but I can't wait
Yeah.
until I'm able to. You know what I mean? And I'm
Mhm.
like, see. And so for me, I would get so stuck like you, being like, man, I don't want to take this gift that I have. I don't want to remove it from this environment that so desperately needs it. But then I had to choose myself. I had to choose
Mm.
myself because I was withering away. Like, would you? I was. I was about 129 pounds when I was in academia. I was smaller because one, I, I could barely feed myself.
Yeah.
I was stressed out. There was a moment during my time in being a professor that due to stress and my own autoimmune issues that I had lost like my edges around my hair, my fingernails at one point because I have an autoimmune issue. And it was just like I was a child, it was a mess.com. And so I think to say that, like, it was like, yeah, I have a gift, and it is really impacting my students in such a beautiful way.
Hmm.
But I had to ask myself, like, it's not about the students, it's about the system.
Hmm.
And does the system deserve my gift? And also, I'm not, if I stay here, I'm gonna die at my desk. These black women in academia dying at the podium, dying at their desk,
Yeah.
dying in their office because the system doesn't love them back. So I was like, you know what, y'all, I gotta go. Like, I can't, like,
Yeah.
get somebody else to do it. So for me, I hear you. It's like, yeah, I was stuck because I see how my gift is is really helping students grow and blossom and feel so empowered and loved, and but I'm not getting that love back. I'm not
Mhm.
getting poured into, and so I got to go somewhere that's going to love me back.
Yeah.
So it was time for it's time for me to bounce.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I feel like. I don't get it. Like, talking about work hard, like I'm a hard, like, boom, boom, boom. I'm always like this.
Hmm.
Go, 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 go. Because I feel like as a black woman, I cannot not be this way. When I put my
Hmm.
uniform on, I'm like, I call it my armor. Like I put it on and I'm like, do, 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 and I'm just like stern, It's like it protects me.
Hmm.
But it's exhausting. It's exhausting from the time I step into
Exactly.
from the time I pull up into the garage, start there, and walk into the door, and then I'm just like, boom, it's on. Hey, ma'am, and I have to be on because if I'm not on, they're gonna catch me not being on, and then somebody gonna come for me. Like that's what so
I
I hear
know.
you say that because that's not a healthy environment to be in 24/7. Even my previous assignment was really hard charging, like to the point to when I got to where I am now, which is a little more lax. I'm still fast, but it's still like leadership wise. And I'm like, I low key miss the bad environment. Like, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to miss that. That's not healthy, like it's not healthy at all. So, it is definitely a struggle. It's definitely a struggle. I do believe that I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm just really, really scared.
Hmm.
I think I can say that. I'm scared
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
talking it out right now, I'm like, girl, you know what you're supposed to do, but I'm just like, I'm scared, Dr. Carter. I don't know.
Well, like two things. One, um, like they be wanting us to be addicted to that fight. They want us to be addicted.
Mm,
They want our brain, that hypothalamus,
mm,
to be activated, right? Always activated, always ready to go, always ready to be reactive,
mm.
rather than to be able to sit in our power and to be able to respond.
Yeah.
And when we're able to sit back and be like, no, like I don't gotta fight.
Mm,
I'm at peace. I am in love with who I am, and I am building a space of joy for myself and for my community and intergenerationally for my children and all these things.
mm,
That is a type of power that cannot be like infiltrated. Um, and that means that that's when we start. How do we do that? We start to remove ourselves from spaces and places that don't work for us.
mm,
Um, and so I 100% hear you when you're like, yeah, you go into a space that is less traumatizing, and you start to still wonder, like, wait, let me go to the place that used to activate me, because your brain is wanting that. That's what you're comfortable with. That's what had been normalized. And so
Hmm.
it's searching for that, right? And you're like, hey, actually, I actually don't need that. That's not healthy for us.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what we call PTSD,
Hmm.
you know? And
Hmm.
um, and I 100% get that. And I had to do my own deprogramming of that and unlearning to relearn and learn a new way of living inside of myself and inside my own being that you can live in peace. You can live in a knowing and an embodiment that I don't need to be activated. I can wake up and be like, ain't shit going down today. And guess what?
And that's
That means
okay.
that that's okay. That is okay. The only thing going down is me going to go get some coffee. That's it.
Oh man, it's so
But
scary. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. That normalizing that, and I think that's what I'm learning to do is like you ain't got to be fighting all the time, girl. Like it's okay.
it's okay. But the fear, I'm gonna be honest with you, like um fear never goes away.
Hmm.
I'm not even gonna hold you. Like fear don't never go away. I wake up every day with some degree of fear because one, the work that I do is to feed people.
Yeah.
So I'm not human if I'm not scared that I might not hit the mark today in my own goal to make sure that people get fed.
Hmm.
That scares me. That actually scares me. Like, how can I walk around as a CEO and be like, yo, like if somebody like if it don't work out today, okay,
Oh,
like no, like I that actually scares me. Like not even gonna hold you, you know? Um, but I feel like the mark of a person is that they do it in
hmm.
despite of the fear, despite of that, they get up and they're like, yo, we're gonna get out this bed. And I might be scared today, but I'm still gonna get up. I'm gonna put my clothes on. I'm gonna drink this coffee, and I'm gonna throw jabs like Mike Tyson to these goals. I mean, I'm gonna knock them out. So yeah.
Oh my God. Yes. And I do a lot scared, just not this one part.
And that's okay.
That's the problem. But I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there. But
You
but
are
I
gonna get
agree
there.
because I talk
Period.
Dr. Carter. No, I talk about doing it scared all the time. Like get out there, make your dreams happen. And I talk, I take women on their healing journeys and talk about their stories and doing it scared. And I'm like, and I do have that conversation with fear, and I do feel that feeling in my gut, and I feel sick, and I'm like, oh, just this one part of my life, I'm like, I hear you, Lord, I hear. Listen, we talk every day, and he be like, "What you doing, Quita? Like you good, like that? You good? You worked pretty hard." And I'm like, I hear you, but I said that I was good. No, but you know what? Actually, I just told my husband this. I said I scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through social media, right? And it was Tyler Perry. I don't know what interview he was doing, but he was doing an interview with somebody, and he was saying that what did he say? The Lord, like he felt that his life got really uncomfortable because he was so comfortable, like until he made the right change. And he's like I didn't want to spend any more money. I didn't want to do any of this. And for a moment, my life got really uncomfortable until I moved to the level that I was
Yes.
supposed to be in.
Yes.
And I low key
Yes.
feel that too right now. And
Yes.
I told my
Hmm.
husband, I was like, yo, this is like talking to me right now because I feel like there's parts of my life that are uncomfortable. And I know it's not even a matter of saying, Lord, what you want me to do? He's like, I done told you like 20 times what you doing. And so I felt that moment. So that was another one. I'm like, okay, I can see what you're doing there. Oh man. It's just,
It's up to you.
I know that part. Don't say
I'm
that.
sorry. You know, I'm an Aquarius. I just sometimes I say the quiet part out loud and I just be like, oh, I did say that. So
No. No, you're absolutely right. It is up to me, and meeting people like you is just, like I said, you're such an inspiration to me. One thing that you did talk about was your strategy, like making a plan and then thinking strategically. Not a lot of people do that. I call it pulling up. I say, y'all got to pull up. Like, you got to pull up. What you doing? You got to be able to look at it up here and look down. But can you talk to the audience a little bit about strategic planning? Not too deep, but you're good at that. You're a professor. You know how to do this. About strategic planning and what it means. And I'm gonna say what it means to pull up, but what it means to do that, like to plan your exit strategy. What should they be looking for when they do that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like I feel like you said two things at once, which I love both of. Like let's like strategic plan for our lives, like one, like
Mhm.
period. And two, let's pull up for ourselves too,
Mhm.
right? Because I think one involves a certain level of organization and management and planning, like,
Mhm.
and the other one is a degree of actual intense accountability for ourselves, and we need both. So the kind of like strategic planning for like an exit, for me what that involved was thinking about first, like, I don't do vision boards. I'm gonna be honest. I know people who love a good vision board. I get that. I'm somebody who likes to imagine things in my mind
Mhm.
and every day think about those things every day and manifest them in my mind, like
Mhm.
while I'm at the coffee shop, while I'm walking. So here's an example, and this is how it relates to like a strategic plan. So if I say, I want to, um, I want to exit this job and start uh my own boutique, right?
Mhm.
I'm not going to create a vision board, but if you want to do a vision board, do that. Like do whatever you is good for your own imagery process. I'm instead going to think about that boutique every day. When I go to the coffee shop, I'm gonna be like, I'm going to order my latte, get my little vanilla latte, drink my latte, and think about sitting that latte on my office desk in my boutique.
Mhm.
Like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to imagine getting in the Uber and the Uber taking me to my boutique. I'm going to think about, if I am scrolling through TikTok, thinking about, oh man, I'm going to be scrolling through TikTok at my desk in my boutique, and somebody's going to come in and be like, hey, can you help me pick out something? Like, I'm going to make what the goal is literally part of my daily thoughts. Like, and that's how I think. Sidebar, people will come up to me randomly. It's so weird. People come up to me randomly and be like, "Oh, I know what you're thinking about." I'm like, "I know that you don't know what I'm thinking about.
You think you know?
You think you know. You have no idea." I am so intense about how I use imagery and manifest. It is like on a whole other level. Like, I will create that world for myself in my imagery that you can't tell me this thing doesn't exist, because I've already been like, yeah, I'm in there. Like, I'm there. It's done. Might as well like sign the papers on it.
Mhm.
So to me, step of strategic planning for our lives and for our goals is to, can you visualize yourself in the life that you want, in the life that you're trying to exit this one from and move to? And it's okay if you're like, man, I'm getting a little, it's a little janky trying to visualize it, but work on it. Really try to see yourself in this space of
Mhm.
whatever is the beauty, the color, the success, the outcomes of it. I feel like that's step one.
Yeah.
Um, and also, part of it is also the very tangible pieces of it. What does it take to transition out,
Mhm.
right? Here's my example. What I had to think about was, I've been in academia for 15 years. I need to really think about, and I wasn't thinking about at that time creating a nonprofit. This was 2018, 2019, right? So
Mhm.
I was just thinking about what was the next step for me in a career. Uh, I did not want to be in academia anymore. So I needed to think about all these skills that I had on the table that were complementary or could help um, kind of elevate another organization. So I had all of these skills around diversity, equity, inclusion,
Mm.
sports, women's sports, research and evaluation, innovation. And then I was an avid runner, avid athlete, all those things. I had ran a marathon, all those things. So I was looking at sports organizations that wanted somebody not just to be a DEI token, but somebody that maybe wanted a really good innovator in the operation space, the logistics space, things like that, a vice president of some sort, and really started to think about that. The third thing that I still do now is that I talk to people within my circle and I ask them straight up, where would you see me?
Oh.
Where would you see me? I don't want them to be like, oh, I could see, like, don't be general. Like, tell me. You
Yeah.
know me. You see me operate. You know my skills. Where would be like a good position that you might see me really flourish or that I need to look for? And the reason why I do this is because I acknowledge that I have blind spots. I
Mm.
might not see my gifts. I might not see some of the other areas that I could really be, excel at. So I want to hear from my friends, my close colleagues, like, do you see me? And where could I look in this transition
Mhm.
and this career ladder that I'm trying to really elevate to? That I should really keep an eye out on. And you'll be surprised. Like a good friend, a good colleague might say, right now you're the, you know, director of hand washing, but honestly, you should be director of logistics management over here because blah blah blah. And you're like, you know what? Maybe I need to throw my maybe I need to throw my hat in the ring over here.
Mhm.
So that's the third thing is that as you're planning this transition out and you're really thinking about what's next for me, we can unintentionally be our own worst enemy because
Mhm.
we only see this piece of ourselves and everybody else can see this piece,
Yeah.
right? They see the bigger picture. And that is okay. If we want to be challenged, if we want to grow, if we want to get a piece of the pot, that's okay. Tell me, right?
Mhm.
And then we love SMART goals. Let's time bound it out.
Yeah.
If today is December, I want to be out of this position by December or January 2025. So I'm going to start applying for jobs in March. Maybe I'll meet with like a hedge hunter by this time. I'll start doing this. I am going to be out by this date. And that is it. We're not going to make it a soft thing. Oh, maybe if no, I'm going to go. I'm going to bounce. I'm out. I'm done type of thing. That's your 4 steps.
I love it. I love it because it's all true. But in all of that too, it's like the manifestation, the mindset, and the action part. Like that
Yeah,
action part. Like we can
you do
manifest and
it.
yeah, and see it and write down the SMART goals, and then you have to take action on it. And I think that's very important to do that and just be and do it scared, right? And do it scared. That's gonna be like the theme. That's gonna be the title of this podcast. Do it scared with Dr. Carter.
Do it. Yeah. And see, that's the pull up part, right? Because
Yep.
there's these moments where you're like, I'm putting the resume out, I'm talking to friends, I'm really manifesting. And there's always going to be these moments that are these turn back moments where you're like, oh, I'm really scared or I'm unsure, I'm really comfortable where I'm at. So maybe it's not right. Or you end up going out with a colleague at your current job and they're just like, don't you love boss say they really understand us? And you're like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't be applying for other job. There's these moments that will be turn back moments where you're like, maybe I should just turn back and back away from my goals or my decisions. And that's when you have to pull up for yourself and say, this is about you. This is about me. This is about my goals. This is about myself, not anybody else. And so let me pull up for myself and stay focused on what I want. This is about me. This is not about anybody else. And that's okay, especially for us Black women, when we make it about everyone else and we're told that our value Our actual value is how we make everybody else feel, right? Our value is us too. Us too. It's an and a both. So it's like, look, okay, no, this is about me. This is about me taking my goals and my profession or whatever it is that you want for yourself to the next level. And whenever something comes up and you're like, oh, maybe, like, no, let me pull up for myself tonight or today or this year. This is about me. That's okay. I do a lot for everyone. And so what I'm going to do is stay focused
Yes.
and stay on my goals and my 4-step plan. And that's it.
Oh my gosh. I do have a question because you made me think, had my mind boggling a little bit. Where do you think, because you're right, I'm going to talk about us as Black women for a second. Where does that come from? Where, because I do feel that too sometimes. Where does that come from where we as Black women feel like we have to be that for everybody else but ourselves? Where do you think that comes from?
Yeah, I think it comes from, you know, a few different places. I think one, it's survival,
Mm,
right? We are a people and a womanhood, but also a personhood, Black people that have had to survive um, the brutality and the violence of slavery.
yeah.
And in surviving the brutality of slavery and post slavery to present day, you know, taking care of our people, taking care of our families,
Mhm.
taking care of other people's families has ensured the preservation of not only our actual physical selves, but our culture, our history, our communities. So we know, Black women know better than any other um, group of people that if we don't show up for each other,
Mhm.
then we may die. We
Yeah.
might we might die in that second, not tomorrow, not next week,
Yeah.
right? So the knowledge of that is embedded in our our DNA.
Mm.
And we know epigenetics, right? So that DNA lives right in our psyche.
Mhm.
And that is that intergenerational transmission. So I think first and foremost, it comes from that. It's just the knowing that us as Black women and Black people, but as Black women, hey, we got to take care of ourselves because this is a matter of survival, of preservation, and then of historical preservation, of cultural preservation, and then just of love, right? When I take care of you, you know I love you,
Yes.
right? So I think that's the first thing, and then just on a slightly more general sociological construct, I think that Black women, actually not I think, I know that Black women um, are more likely to be socialized to care, to be the caretaker in that
Mhm.
sense than of their male counterparts. So we are just more generally socialized, and women in general too are
Mhm.
more socialized to be the caretaker to tend for the household. Uh, and in doing that we sacrifice ourselves, right? And
Mhm.
we're more likely to be strained in those ways. um and we don't want to tell we want to try to help ourselves to have a little bit more balance and say it's okay
Yeah.
to care for ourselves a bit more, especially when we get in modes of this where we might not be fully feeling like we're realizing our full potential
Mhm.
in our lives, right? Where we're like, hey, I feel like I got more to give. I feel like there's more that I can grow into
Mhm.
in my life. Yet, maybe a barrier is I'm spending a little bit more energy over here, or I feel like I'm supposed to caretake for this workplace or for these people instead of myself. It's like, actually, Ma, take this time for yourself and allow yourself to go into the full realization of who you are
Mhm.
uh, versus not. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Step into your gift fully. And especially, well, when I started the Chiquita Mack, it was like, this is our place, like for my Black women, my women of color, to talk about mental health, to talk about our struggles and to have someone that understands what's
Mhm.
that's like and have a platform that's safe to tell our stories because I didn't feel like we had that. And there's other
Mhm.
platforms that I may have been a part of that I'm like, this ain't even really for me. I don't feel comfortable. I can't be myself. And so I just think it's really important that we do love ourselves and we create these spaces for ourselves and get to meet wonderful women like you in this space. But yeah, we do a lot for everybody. We do a lot for everybody, and it's okay to pull up for ourselves, as you
It's
stated.
okay to pull up for ourselves. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Dr. Carter, you've been amazing today. You've been absolutely amazing. I've enjoyed this episode with you, and I'm about to be stalking you on Instagram. But
Feel free.
but can you tell the listeners where they can find you on your socials and where they can be a part of even your nonprofit, any thing that you have going on as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Leeja. And definitely, follow my nonprofit at Coalition_Equity. The full name is the Coalition for Food and Health Equity. And our charge is to make sure that folks eat well and have access to healthful nutrition wherever they are. And so you can also follow us online at the Coalition for Food and Health Equity. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This has just been such a pleasure talking with you. I can't believe like we're almost at the hour, and
Yeah,
that just went by so fast.
it flew
So
by. It definitely,
it flew
definitely
by.
flew by.
Yeah.
I will
Hmm.
make sure that I link everything in the show notes. And if you need help with anything, I would love to be a part of anything that you're doing, any event. I'm coming. So please keep
Yes.
me in mind. I would love to help and volunteer and whatever I can do to support you.
That would be so, 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 so dope. And the same here, if I can do anything just to spread some love, light, joy in your day, in your listeners' days, just let me know. Yeah.
Yes, I got you. I got you. You guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment. And if you're listening wherever you stream your podcast, make sure to leave a review. All right, you guys, until next time.